Welcome to the MMHP and the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history.
Hello, Michigan music lovers. This is Scott Baker. I want to welcome you to the Michigan Music History Podcast. I am flanked by Michigan music royalty. To the left, Dr. J. To the right, Sir Fred. We cut from just around the block of the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan, here at Studio 163 in Essexville. And now it's time to grab a favorite beverage, hit the cruise, and take a trip back with us through Michigan's rich music history.
This podcast is sponsored by our friends at Electric Kitsch, located at 2106 Kosciuszko Avenue in Bay City, Michigan. And now, here's your host, Scott Baker.
Well, we're rolling back here at Studio 163 in Essexville, right around the corner from the great Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame on Washington Avenue. How's that going down at the Rock Hall, Dr. J?
We're getting steady traffic, and it's going very well.
And here we are into the midst of spring, and a little bit of nice weather, a little bit of the windy, rainy action, but hey, we got some feet on the street, so that's kind of cool. That's good. I'm glad everything's going smooth. How you doing, Sir Fred, over there?
I'm doing well.
Yeah? Anything new?
Well, yesterday I found, a stack full of old country 78s from the 20s.
Whoa.
That was fun, listening to them.
Yeah.
I'd say half of them are too scratched, so you can't even hear the music, but the other half are in pretty good shape.
Are you sure they're from the 20s? Because I thought the first country recordings were...
Well, this is like Vernon Dahlhart, and
Yeah,
they're kind of pop country.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't called country back then, but that's what they were listed under.
Was that what you were listening to when you were a kid?
Who, me?
Just messing.
No.
Mike Beatty, our archivist, is in the house. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good.
Everything doing good? How was the Jack White concert?
Excellent.
Yeah. Did you get some bootleg footage?
I got it all.
Hell yeah. That's what we call him, the archivist, for.
Didn't he get married or something on stage?
Yeah, the night before, Friday night. He
Oh.
proposed and got married.
Yeah, his wife, Olivia Jean, is pretty interesting artist. I don't know if you've heard
I know
anything.
nothing about her.
Yeah, she's kind of like rockabilly, but kind of updating rockabilly
Really?
sound. Yeah, she's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah. And I head to Florida tomorrow.
All right. Are you going to be here next week?
Nope.
All right. Well,
I'll be seeing Van the Man.
Van Morris, that gig's finally coming around, eh?
Yep.
He's got one booked in Scottsdale, and my buddy called me. Let's go to Scottsdale and see Van.
He's playing in Detroit as well.
Yeah.
Is he? Oh, I didn't know that. I just haven't been following lately. I'm so busy.
In fact, tickets in Detroit are like $900.
Yeah, of course. They're like $700 in Scottsdale, I think he said, for the cheap seats.
In Clearwater, they're I got like 10th row center, $375.
Excellent.
Where
Wow.
comparable at the Fox would be over $1,000.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, we were blessed here tonight to have a real good special guest, a good friend of the whole crew here, pretty much. Been going back with me since I started playing music, and he's really allowed me to get into his music that he's put on. He's allowed me to do a lot of interviews, a lot of behind the scenes. He's even allowed me to get on stage, and he's a good friend of ours, and I want to thank Chad Cunningham to come in here tonight. How you doing, Chad?
I'm doing well. I like how you say that I allowed you. Scott made all my concerts work by writing the most professional articles and making my dumb ass look really good. I would give him stuff, and I always read it and thought, man, I sound awesome in here after we get done doing these articles for the Bay City Times, which I can't thank you enough for helping us to promote all those shows. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a great friendship, and we've always had a good time. There's never been a bad day that we've had, and it's all been music and good times. So what a great teamwork, man, here. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Have you ever
Glad
done
to
one?
be here. No, I've never done one. That scares me, but we'll see
Well, let's take it from that scaring point.
Yeah.
Like I told you when I got here tonight, the initial thing was we were going to talk about your dad. Your dad has a lot of musical history going back. And Gary, you were like putting that arrow together to try to aim him here. So give us a little bit on what you were aiming for in the original backstory before I got Chad to add to the bill here.
Well, my history with Chad's dad, Ron, just goes back to the Delrays. And going out on Tuesday nights to Rollaire at State Park Drive and watching the Delrays. At that point, they were playing just about every week in the Battle of the Bands competitions. And, they were Bay City's favorite band by far. And Ron was the real showman of the band, really the star of the band as the drummer. And, the Delrays were just really a fun band. They always kind of reminded me of the Kingsmen. They had that kind of sort of like a party frat band sound.
Almost like that feel. That
Louie
party
Louie,
vibe.
Long Tall Texan, and, all those kind of songs. They were really good, and everybody loved them out of
Did they
Rollaire.
play all over the state?
Yeah. They played at a lot of the teen clubs. I know I interviewed Ron for a story about the Delrays and the Fallouts, of course, which was the band that the Delrays grew out of. They had played at Daniel's Den, backed the Van Canyon, and played there all the time as well. Backed some of the big names. I think Ron said that they backed Sonny and Cher at Daniel's Den. I was real impressed checking out Cher from behind. And the
Best seat in the
had
house.
trouble keeping the beat there.
I think that comment got him in trouble with Mom, so we shouldn't. We just brought it back
All right,
up.
we'll edit that one
We'll
out.
edit that part out. But sorry, Mom.
Maybe.
It's funny with Dad and that band. Growing up as a kid, and that's I think where I found the love of music was the neighborhood. Steve Clay and those guys were getting instruments, and I went downstairs and started beating on my dad's drum. Well, I broke one of the heads, and I remember going over to the music center trying to replace it, and they laughed at me because they were cowhide, and everything now had become whatever, synthetic. And I said, I need to replace this for my dad gets home. I'm gonna get in trouble. And they're like, we're not replacing that head. And so, but it was, I'd be out mowing the lawn, and whatever, Dad would be out, and the mailman stopped the one day to ask him. I mean, this is so far beyond when he was done playing, and they're still like, are you Ron Cunningham? Oh my God, we used to watch it. So the effect as kids back then, I think it's different right now. There's so much media and social media and so much to keep kids occupied. But I think when Dad did it, that was a bigger deal back then to go watch a live band.
Oh yeah, it was real. I remember just thinking, gee, there's really a rock and roll band from Bay City. It just seemed, like it wasn't even possible. So, it was a very different time. And, everybody was listening to pretty much the same music on the AM radio stations, in the Tri-Cities. And, very different for kids. And, Rollaire was a big, big social get-together where there would be 2,000 kids there.
Yeah, I know.
On a Tuesday night. It's
Bobby
amazing.
said he'd go out because he couldn't get in, Bobby Balderrama, to watch Dad's band play, and he said that he couldn't get into the place, so he would stand on the car hood. I guess you could see over the fence, or there was a wall. I'm not really sure.
Their cars were parked on the grass all around the Rollaire, which was kind of enclosed by brick walls by that point in time.
He said he'd watch Dad's band, but that was...
so there were all kinds of kids hanging out outside as well as everybody inside. Of course, all the action was inside.
Yeah.
But, I think you had to be 15 to get in. And I think it was only 25 cents or 50 cents or something like that.
And what would that be like now? Like about $300?
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they put out original music? Was there singles or no?
No,
Nothing.
there's the only recording that was done of the Delrays was done at sort of a reunion.
It was done at the end of their career, really.
Right.
So they had started doing these reunions where they would come back and meet every year up here for the summer, and the band Finding Clyde would put all their stuff together for Dad's band to use and play, and the guys would do it. And the lead singer Rick. I had asked, I said, do you guys ever have a song? Well, he said he had a song, so he taught the guys the part. And actually, Bobby Balderrama played some guitar leads on that. But there was a song called Brand New Bone that they did, which is about Viagra and Cialis. So the song is hilarious.
Yeah, it is a pretty good song.
I never have tried to push it. I should probably send it to those two companies just to see what would happen. But it's a pretty funny song.
Is that on YouTube?
It's I think I put it on. I think it's out there.
Okay.
I'd have to look, Scott.
That's awesome.
I definitely have a CD I can bring you, but it's funny songs.
Yeah, and they played a few places. I know Rick didn't make it back all the time, so they
right.
they didn't have the vocalist, but they put something together. I thought it was at the Steinhaus, wasn't
They
it?
did the Steinhaus and Perry Woodard's studio one time. There was
Right.
a bunch of different. It was more about the pictures of beer than it was about the music at that point, I believe.
I know they were a little under rehearsed,
Very under rehearsed and didn't really want to rehearse.
but
so.
it was a great deal of fun, to watch them get together again.
Yeah.
And now, of course, Jack has passed away, and so it's not. Yeah,
It's not the
just
same.
yeah, that's right.
Did you get to see him back in the day, Fred?
Oh, yeah.
Seemed to
In
be the
Saginaw.
very popular name that came through for a lot of the
They were a
podcasts
great
that we've
band,
had so
great
far.
band.
Yeah, it's really too bad that they didn't put out a 45 at least, because they were so popular. But
I don't know
again,
back then if it was as like it is now. Like now, if you form a band, we all try to make records and singles
Yeah.
and everything else. I think back then you just kind of covered some.
they were a little early in the game
Yeah.
too, where I think the guy who really got the do-it-yourself thing going was Dick Wagner,
Yeah.
who recorded, and then he kind of used, he built up relationships with area DJs, would come on their show, they did skits, would play at a lot of dances, and they got a lot of airplay. So he kind of, invented it, if that's the good word, this way of doing things. And then he became a real big mentor, producing records, and some of the songs he was writing he would give to some of these area bands. Really interesting. But, that the Del Reys were before that, really before the Bossmen. And, and I think by the time the Bossmen came on, the Del Reys were already kind of morphing into the Shepherds, and they already went through some personnel changes and so on. So they kind of missed out on that part of it.
Do you remember your dad playing at home or band rehearsals, or
Sure. The guys
anything like reunions or?
Oh yeah, when I was really young, down in the basement, they were
Oh wow.
Yeah, not as far as still playing out. They were done playing out by the time I had come to the scene,
But just in time
they
to
would
catch them jam.
Yeah, they would jam. Yeah, and that's kind of where I thought, man, this would be a cool thing to try. So.
Wow. And we got some backstory on you too. I mean, from Jeff Yance was on our podcast, and the story of he formed his first band with you and Cheeks, and the John Glenn thing going on back then.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you took that inspiration and moved forward.
Well, I think that was it. We were trying to figure out what to do. Luckily, I didn't have to stick on the drums. Jeff took over the drums, and we got a paper out and got our first guitar, and Cheeks got a bass for $75, and we saw what we could do. So, but that was the first band, the Hitmen, I think.
The Hitmen, that's what Jeff said. Yeah.
Yeah, they gave me a poster of it for my 50th birthday, which made me feel really old. I think my waist was a 29 at that point.
Yeah, we all remember those days.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. You could eat whatever you wanted.
That's right.
But so we went from that to then I guess the next thing for me was out of school recording ? And the Mysterians album. That was kind of the next thing.
The Bullfrog Records days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We spoke to Bobby about them too.
We want to maybe go back into that a little bit because, at that time, you could not get a hold of those original ? And the Mysterians recordings. Abco had total control of all that stuff. They got it from Cameo Parkway, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
To have them go out there and record some of those classic songs that they did that were unavailable.
Yeah, the sound recording rights were up or something. I don't know how it worked that it was available, but they came and said, do you want to record? And I know ? And then they looked at 3 different studios, one in Chicago, one in Detroit, and then at mine. And, I live on the Saginaw Bay, and they didn't even see the studio and decided they were recording there because I think it was a better place to go hang out while you're recording. And so I remember they came and checked out the studio, and then I ended up calling a friend of mine, Mike Krieger, to help me. He had just got done working on a Michael Jackson record out in California. So, because I was out of school. I got a studio for me and Jeff and Cheeks to screw around in, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is a real deal. I mean, they wanted me to sign a contract, and it was real money, and so we did the record, and they hated it, and they told me to redo it because, you know, well, it's weird if you listen to that song that was recorded, and you're a historian, I'm not. Is it 63, that 96 Tears? Am I close?
66.
66. Okay, so in 66, you know, the equipment wasn't the same as what we were using, and so all of a sudden the kick drum was in there and the guitars and all that, and they said, we want this to sound exactly like the original. Well, I'm thinking, man, this is a shame, but we did. We went back and changed that record to sound just like the original record, so, and it was pretty cool. VH1 came up and shot a thing in the studio with Question Mark, and you know, Question Mark's bit was about peanut butter, and you know, we went from Peter Frampton, right, showing the black guitar and all this cool stuff, and then it clips to Question Mark telling you that he's from Mars, and they're showing this weird video, and then the next thing is that peanut butter is the problem with the school system because peanut butter makes kids horny, so you got all these little horny kids running around the school, and I'm just like, in the record company. The record company was so mad. They called and they're like, and I'm like, look, I had nothing to do with the interview. You got to control, you know, Question Mark.
Oh, yeah, good luck with that.
And,
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny though. I just remember watching it thinking, wow, and they were upset because it wasn't going to help sell records. But, you know, ultimately it probably did help sell records.
Well, yeah, it's hard to say. Did you have any problem getting the rights to, you know, because they lost really the rights to, I think, all their songs with, you know, some very questionable management decisions there. Did you have to get permission from ABCO to record those songs or anything?
I'm trying to think of who I worked for. I think it was a division of Warner Brothers called Collectible Records, is I think what the actual label would say on that record. But all I was is the hired gun to go in and record the thing and give it to them. So okay. I didn't have to go get any of the, you know, they did all of the paperwork and everything for it. All I was doing is turning over the tapes to them once the
So that was the Collectible Records one before you did a Bullfrog thing with them.
So,
well,
so
it was done
at the time,
Bullfrogs, right?
it was done at Bullfrog. So my whole thing started with Bullfrog Productions. So it was Bullfrog Productions, and then that slipped into, then if I was going to start recording them myself and doing all these records, we made it Bullfrog Records.
Yeah.
But I was working for Collectible Records,
Yep.
and I was just producing that record for them of how they wanted it produced. So
Yeah, Collectibles.
it wasn't on my label.
Yeah, their whole thing was re-releasing music from the past, so they probably had this was all streamlined to be able to acquire the rights to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when I talked to them about something during then, it was their whole thing was trying to make an exact image of the old songs, because a lot of old bands were doing that at the time because they didn't have rights to it. So now you have the rights to something that sounds super similar that they can market and make their own money back on.
Exactly what it was. Yeah. That's why they wanted it to sound exactly the same. I still like my version, but
now, had you recorded the Haskells and the Robert Lee Band before that, or did that come afterward?
that's all after.
Okay.
Yep.
Why don't you take us through how you took that recording session with Question Mark and the Mysterians and then started working with some local bands around here? And there were some pretty great recordings you did there.
Yeah, so then after that, I started working with a guy down in Detroit. Told me, you should see this. I'm trying to get my stories right here. I should have had this rehearsed right. So a guy down in Detroit told me about this band called Lucid Jones. And so after I did the Question Mark and Mysterians, I started working with a band called Lucid Jones, and we put them out, and they did really well. So well that Lava Records, which is a division of Atlantic at the time, and the guy that was heading that label up was Jason Flom, flew in to see him. So I had that band on the label and promoting them, I'm going to say, for about 2 years. At the end of that 2 years, they were starting to make radio play. WIOG here was playing them, and they were starting to show some charting and stuff. And Jason Flom called me out of the blue. The funny story about this is that I thought it was, can we swear on this show or not? Sure. I thought it was total bullshit, right? So I'm tired. You know, you just have those days. I'm sitting at home. I come home from work, whatever. I'm in the recliner. My phone's sitting on my chest, and it rings. It says, like, unknown number. I said, hello. He said, Chad, it's Jason Flom. I want to talk to you about signing Lucid Jones, right? And I thought, oh, this is horse shit, right? And so I said, yeah. And I made some smart-ass comment. And as I was making this smart-ass comment, walking up the stairs, because my wife and kids were in the room, and so I was heading up the stairs, I lose the call, right? And it just drops. I thought, oh, whatever this is. And I'm a smart-ass, anybody that knows me. So I thought somebody's just giving me shit. So I hang up the phone. Well, now it calls back, and it says 212. And I thought, oh, shit, that's New York. You know, I know 212. Yeah. And he says, Chad, sorry, I lost you. What were you saying? I said, sir, well, let me tell you, I'd love to meet, right? And so we ended up meeting in Pontiac. Man, and I can't remember. There was in Mount Clemens, there was a big theater that they let us use for the audition. I'm not going to come up with the name of it.
Is that the Emerald down there?
Yeah.
In Mount Clemens? Yeah.
Yep. So we're at the Emerald. So we ended up, I went down and I met Jason and his marketing guy, and Kid Rock dropped him off to me. Bob comes up, and they were driving the General Lee, and they got out of that and they got into my car, and we went to Uncle Cracker's house and picked him up and met his family, and then we went out to eat and stuff, and then the band was waiting for us, and we went and did the audition. The audition went great, and we came back to Pontiac, and he had his nice little, G6 sitting there, Gulfstream, ready to roll. And he gave me a fruit basket for Dina and all this. And he said, we're going to sign your band. I'll have my lawyers call you on Monday, and we'll fly you and the band to New York to sign the deal. And, they took off, and I took off for home and called the band and said, my God, this is a done deal. And we're going to go to Europe with Uncle Cracker, open every show, and do the whole Europe tour. So that's awesome. So that was probably Wednesday, I think, or something like that. So Friday, I'm helping my cousin and family put a roof on Grandma's house. And I get a call that, hey, this is Jason Flom. There's an artist freeze. There's because of what's happening with Napster and all the illegal download, they've just put a freeze on all new artist development. We're not going to be able to do this deal. I remember getting off that roof and going home and going right to bed. Like, I saw myself at the Grammys. I'm sitting next to Lenny Kravitz. I had this whole freaking thing planned out. Like, I'm like, wait, what? And so, I remember, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I couldn't get out of bed because this is a dream. You know how this music industry is. It's a long ball, and everybody knows that. But I thought I hit this thing, and here we go. Yeah. And so then Mom brought me a Xanax on Monday and said, you got to try one of these, and I did, and I finally got back on my feet. And my wife told me, look, this isn't who I met. Get your shit together, and we did. And so I said, I'm done with this music thing, right? I'll just go focus on my other career, and I'm out. And then, you fast forward, the next band was probably, the Haskells were in that at the same time. So those were, that was a local band around here. And they had a great sound, and Lucid Jones loved them. Nate and the guys for them, I took them to see them. They're like, oh my God, you got to sign this band, because they were really unique, the Haskells. I don't know how much you heard of them.
Yeah, I got the album.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got, Andy's just so unique and got such a great sound, very talented. But again, it was just timing. In that era was really tough. It was just because what was happening with all the money that you needed to promote records and to make a record work was getting washed up, because it was all free. You could get as much music as you wanted free, because this internet thing was as cool as the internet was for the independent artists to get their stuff out. It was also screwing up the revenue stream and getting a lot of things complicated. So
Napster was the total COVID of the end of that decade, and that whole
it definitely screwed me up. I'd like to see what would have happened, but
absolutely. I remember that.
What happened to Lucid Jones? Did they just? That must have been a major disappointment. It just like you had the gold ring, right in your hands, and all of a sudden it slips away.
It's hard to go play the Magic Bag, right, for $1,000. Then after you think you're gonna go play for 50,000 or whatever, you know what I mean. So it was right there, and we thought we had it, and then it was just like son of a gun, and so. That was it. That kind of washed it up for me for a while, and then And then I guess the next thing that happened was Bobby Balderrama bought me Finding Clyde. That was the next thing I did.
But you also put out a record, the Robert Lee band, right? Bobby's Blues Band.
We did.
I know they opened for one of your, I don't remember who they opened for, but one of the big shows that you promoted at Vets Park.
Yeah, they've played a bunch of times for me.
Yeah.
Question Mark and the Mysterians, actually, Question Mark and the Mysterians opened for Joan Jett back when I did it. And then I know Bobby's played a couple different things. Listen, I don't think there's a nicer guy than Bobby Balderrama, and I think he's so humble and yet so talented, and I'm excited that he got his second #1 hit. That's so cool.
That's totally awesome.
Because we tried the blues thing, we did a blues record, and that's a hard market too. But
I was working at School Kids Records in Ann Arbor, the record label, and Bobby sent me that blues tape.
Yeah. That song, The Bluest Blues, is still one of my favorite songs. I think it sounds awesome. I know it's not his song.
The Donnie Herman tune?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to look at Gary for all the...
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think so. I remember Donnie gave him some songs for the... I'm pretty sure.
It's a killer song, and he did a great job with it. And so Bobby, now we're getting ready. I know I'm not keeping this in a timeline order, but we're just finishing up. Dennis, who you introduced me to, is doing his album cover, and he's putting out a full jazz record that'll be out here shortly. So
just in time for not just in time, but before the Jazz Festival on, was that August 13th?
Yeah, August 13th, I think he's playing.
That sounds like, it's going to have, the Mike Brush group with, who's the vocalist?
Julie Milady.
Yeah, Julie Milady. And Patrick Yandel.
Yeah.
There's somebody else? I know
sure.
Yandel is
he's the headliner.
Yeah, he's the headliner. But
sure.
that'll be a great show.
Yeah. That's cool for Bay City to get a festival style thing like that.
Yeah. Especially for jazz. I don't think that's been done in Bay City before that I can
Not that
think
I'm
of.
aware of.
But coming out of the Bullfrog thing, you what did happen to Lucid Jones? Did they break up, or did you part ways with them, or how did that roll?
No, it just didn't roll. It was such a high to come off of that. We just
Petered out.
Yeah, and I think we were kind of at a point after a 2-run deal. It starts to become, you know what I mean. It's just and so it just it faded off, and they thought they made it, and so Nate went on to do a bunch of recording, and the rest of the guys just went back to their normal jobs and stuff, and they play and would screw around, but nothing.
I haven't heard or seen from them, any of those cats, in a long time, and I remember spending some time with those guys.
Yeah, no, they were great. Nate, one of the best vocalists I've ever worked with. I mean, he was amazing. So. Yeah, so then that kind of broke up, and then time passed, and I'm not good with timelines ever, but a lot of time passed, and I didn't do much. Shows. I've always done shows in Bay City. That part I always have enjoyed. But Bobby brought me a CD and said, "Man, you got to hear these guys," and I put it in, and it was in my computer, and I listened to it, and I said, "Man, I'm not getting back into it. It was just too hard of a deal and too much time." And I said, "I'm not doing it." Well, I was on a plane, and the song came back, and that was when Finding Clyde, played through my headset in the plane. I called Bobby. I said, "I want to meet these guys," and then we gave that one a run, which that one did well too. It's hard to get that final step. So.
Oh yeah. And you had Jason Flom, I think, involved in your those later years too.
No, Jason Flom was I would talk to these guys, but there was more. There was different cats involved with Finding Clyde guys than Jason. I
just remember Jason's name popped up. I'm thinking maybe though it was in Larry's camp and Paul and all them.
Yeah,
because he was always checking in up here with either you or them or something. So keeping an ear to the mid-Michigan hotspot anyway. But yeah, okay. I remember that's the first time I heard that name because I was getting promo from him in Atlantic Records and Lava when they first started back in Delta College back in the day in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is the legit stuff here.
Yeah, and it was a cool label, Lava, when it first started because those mini labels are kind of, I like the more cutting than the sellout labels that are just all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So what was your, you took some downtime you worked the shows. That'll take us right into some of the events you've done over the years. And I know that you've peppered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with some of the stuff that you've had locked away in your office. But tell us some of the best shows and your favorite shows you've put on. You've put on so many, I don't expect to hear about all of them. But what are some of the highlights over the years that you've put on here in Bay City?
I don't know. I mean, let's start with the first show where I made a total ass of myself. That's probably the best one. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So, I'm all excited, and that was Terry Watson and Red Hall had asked me to help. They were doing, and I don't mean this, they were doing, I don't even know how to say it without being offensive, but, local bands and stuff like that. And they said, we want you to do the entertainment. And I said, well, let's try national. What do you mean? Is that, and I said, well, let's try to go after somebody. How much can I spend? Well, of course, it scared the heck out of them. And I think that first show we spent $25,000. Now, just to put that into perspective, this show that I have coming this summer is almost $500,000. So, but 25 was scary back then, and they said, okay, let's do it, and we got some sponsors and this and that. And that first show was 38 Special that we brought, and we did it in Winona Friendship Show, and that was in connection with the River Roar. Well, at that time, I thought, man, this is so cool. I'm going to get to meet a real band, and so I wanted to see if they would sign a guitar. I thought that was a big deal, and so I put a guitar in the back of my Ford Escort. It was actually Jeff Jantz's sister's car that I bought. Stick shift, pretty cool. And so I'm all set. And so the roadies are unloading all the gear and setting up for the show, and They said, can we get a beer around here? And back then, Vets Park had a beer tent. We didn't have any beer in Winona. That was, was kind of not as game on as it is today. And I said, well, we can run across and get a beer. And they said, okay, we'd like to do that. So the two roadies get in my car, one in the back and one's in the front seat. And we head over the bridge. And he says, hey, what is this guitar back here for? And I said, well, when the band gets here, I'm hoping maybe they would sign it for me. And he says, well, I'm Jeff Carlisi. I'm the guitar player. And this is Bobby Capps, the keyboard player. I thought, holy cow, you guys set your own gear up? I thought they were roadies, So I said, will you still sign the guitar? And they said yes. And then luckily, it really worked out to get that away from us. As Bill Sebald was such a nice guy. I took him down to meet Bill because that was a big deal, the Sebald race team for Budweiser. And Bill threw him in a boat. They shut the river down. Like, there was all this stuff going on, but because the band was there, they shut the river down and took him for a ride. Well, now if you fast forward probably about 15 years after that, I go down and we're recording, and Bobby Capps had a studio with Chris Henderson from Three Doors Down. Well, Joey from Finding Clyde and myself were down there recording songs, and Bobby came walking in, and he knew exactly who I was. I said, oh, we forgot about the guitar though, right? He goes, yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Well, okay, but it was funny. And we had him come back a second time, 38 Special. But that was, listen, the shows, we've been really blessed to hit stuff here too, because to have people like Faith Hill and Martina McBride and Trace Atkins, those were all really timing. I mean, we would pay them $35,000 to $50,000, which was about the top for our budget. And the next year, those guys would all be $200,000-$300,000, which we wouldn't have been able to do. So it was we just timed a lot of stuff absolutely right. The one we didn't time right was this band called Hootie and the Blowfish that I remember telling the agent that's a one-hit wonder. There's no way. They wanted $7,500. I said nobody would come to that show. I'm not doing it. I knew what I was doing at that time, Scott. No, by that summer they had blown up everywhere. This is now a $150,000 band, and I passed and just sat there going, doggone it. But we did have him come back and play our show when he was in the country aspect. We did get Darius Rucker back here, and
and got his guitar at the Hall of Fame. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough for loaning us all those instruments. That just adds that special element to the whole presentation. It's great.
I like that they're somewhere where other people can see them.
That's true too.
All they were doing is making me feel old. So
that was a pretty impressive office you had. I know I was jaw dropping going in there for the first time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This podcast is sponsored by our friends at Electric Kitsch. located at 2106 Kosciuszko Avenue in Bay City, Michigan. They offer new and used records, including local to Michigan original vinyl and CDs, as well as clothing, electronic equipment, funky household items, music gear, and stringed instrument repair. You can find them on the web or call 989-402-1411.
A guitar autograph became the thing after that first show. That's how that started.
We sure got a bunch of them. Yeah, I would always take a guitar down, and the only one that wouldn't sign a guitar for me was Ted Nugent. He signed everybody's bow and arrow, but wouldn't sign. He would not sign a guitar because he
asked for your loincloth.
He said I was going to sell it. I said, put my name on it. I'm not going to sell these guitars, but he wouldn't sign a guitar.
Oh, be dang. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Our local guy too.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So,
Alice Cooper we've had him a couple times too. He was great. So some of those guys you meet, they're just really sweet people. Faith Hill was the same way, just unbelievably genuine and humble people. You wouldn't think. And then you meet some that are total the opposite.
Yeah, that photo that you let us blow up of Alice Cooper that's pretty classic work.
What a great shot. That guy, he takes pictures for me every year when we'll come down, and we always have to clear with the band, and they'll let you do I think it's the first 3 songs or whatever, but man, he takes great pictures.
Yeah, that's almost like a 3D.
It's so clear.
Yeah,
you walk right into it. It looks awesome. Yeah. I think you've done an amazing job, though, for bringing that right here to Bay City. And
well, thanks. Yeah.
All the work that went into that. And
it's worked out really well. And as I said, it's a team effort. There were a lot of great people working with me on that, yourself included.
Well, but there was one person that kept everybody going, and I know it wasn't easy. So I like that you pretend you're humble, or maybe you are humble. But I think
it's all an act.
From me in the city, as being a rocker and stuff, it's really cool to have that here, and I think that's going to grow in and live forever. I hope they never take it out.
Oh, I think it's there. It's permanent.
Well, that tombstone was kind of permanent. So.
I don't think that's going anywhere, except for maybe this first floor.
Yeah, we're hoping that those joists hold together there and keep it up.
I thought it was funny, when I was at the thing when he whatever he said, a ribbon cutting of the grand opening of the museum, but he said, we had to make sure that we positioned for the weight to get that just right, and I'm in this room with whatever 300 or 400 people that he's taken up there, and I said to my dad, maybe that would take the second trip if they're worried about that thing. How much did 300 or 400 people weigh? I said,
right. Oh man. Well, going back to some of those shows, like you were just saying, Alice Cooper, there was also one of them you tied in a softball thing. Was it the radio station thing, or remember Alice played softball before that event?
He for sure.
There was some cool things that happened
right.
Night before some of these events. There's some good stories in there too.
Yeah. So Alice called up to the radio station. I think I believe to Stan Parman and said, "Hey, I'm coming in, and is there a way to put a softball thing together?" And they did put a little charity thing, and Alice played. You're right. That was the first time I had him. You're going back a ways. You played it. Who did you open up for?
You had me when I was originally in Muddy Gumbo, open for CCR.
Oh, okay.
I think that was with Lucid on the bill, maybe back then.
Yeah.
Then when I went solo, you had my band and with Jeff come out for Styx.
Oh, yeah.
And that was with Finding Clyde.
Yep.
You also threw me on solo 3 Days Grace, maybe?
Yeah, man, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was packed.
This year's will be just as good as that one. That was a fun show. It's interesting, the active rock show, how the crowd responds. And I think this year's going to be a fun show.
I remember looking at you saying, "You want me to play solo in front of this?" You're like, "You just go do it. You'll do it. You'll be fine." And then I got out and I did a couple of what I thought would fit, like an Eddie Vedder solo thing, and the whole audience started singing along. And I looked over at you and Bruce LaFrance were sitting there, and you guys are like, Yep, there you go, dude. You got it now.
It's fun, those shows, I tell you. I've threatened to retire a few times, and everybody throws that back in my face over and over. You just, when you're in the heat of a lot of these contracts and stuff, it's just like, why am I doing this? But when I look around at our scrapbook of the family and everything like that, it's like there's so many good memories down there with friends like you and everything that just, those 3 or 4 days of the actual show when we're down there, even setting up, I don't care if it's setting up the fence or picking up trash or whatever, I love that whole event.
And you could tell you do. I watched you walk around from, I got to track Chad down. Tracking Chad down is not possible on those days. But I watch you, and you'll walk with a smile the whole time. You're smiling.
I love the whole thing, and I like all the people. And I'm telling you, we're so blessed to have these volunteers because, I have never taken $1 out of any of these shows. It all goes to charity, and it started as the Boys and Girls Club, which is a good story about the Boys and Girls Club. But and I think there's so many volunteers that come down and spend their whole weekend with me as well to help serve the beer or to help to check people in or to work the security. And we've given a lot of money. I'll bet you it's close to $1.5 million to the charities off of doing these shows. So now I'm having a blast and going and having a ton of fun, and it also is a lot of money going to charities. So it just works out good, and it's such a great community that everybody. I've had Chesaning call me, Midlands called me, all these other places. Said I don't know if I could come and do a show there because I do a show and I just call my friends and they call their friend. Everybody shows up, everybody knows what to do, and everybody's in their position. And I get all the credit. It's perfect, and they do all the work. So it's the perfect storm.
Have you done shows
everybody in
outside
Bay City has a great time.
Yeah, that's true. That's like it's like a national act. That's how cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a show outside of Bay City?
So I have. I did all the shows for IOG that were at the ball field.
The Lizard Fair.
Lizard Fairs.
I played them.
Yeah.
You had to be on those bills.
I did all the Lizard Fair, and then I did the Chesaning Showboat for Scott. I did probably 2 or 3 of those for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they were really set up. Those weren't truly my shows. That was me just stage managing or doing an element of not the whole ball and wax.
Mm-hmm.
The Boys and Girls Club story that I wanted to tell you was funny. Early on, so I was on the board of the Boys and Girls Club, and we did the 38 special show and had beer and made a nice donation and everything. And there was a gentleman on the board that said, if this is going to be the Boys and Girls Club thing, we probably shouldn't have alcohol and promote. And I said, okay, we'll just go do the show and not have alcohol. And the next year we couldn't make a donation because we didn't have any money. And guess what they voted for the third year? Let's
alcohol.
Bring the beer tent back. I thought, it's crazy how that works, right?
Yep.
Like, this is a bad idea. Maybe it's not such a bad idea. So.
Well, right. I remember you telling me before that really the big money that's made is really through the beer tent.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not on tickets.
It's nuts. I was talking to Jim Fabiano probably a couple days ago, and I think we still have the record for the Tri-Cities. It was 2 days. It was the Ted Nugent and Poison, and we did like 430 barrels. Now, we're going to cans, and I said, you got to commit, because I think this one will be bigger this year, of course, and that's always the goal. But I said, I need to know how to measure it, because, I got to know how many cans I need to sell to keep up to the 430 barrels. Casey used to be the guy that would always do the Porta-Johns for us, and he said, I don't know why the Bay City Times doesn't interview me. I can tell them which events are successful. I can tell them how much, how full the truck is from every different event. And I never thought about measuring events in waste. But,
I met Casey. That is awesome.
Everybody's got their method. He's like, he could always tell me the next day. He's like, "Oh, you made a lot in beer last night." I said, "How do you know that?" Because I've got it.
Oh man,
interesting.
That is. Yeah. So I remember the similar thing. Like I interviewed Bachalupa for his summer fest last year, and how he puts them on. And he's like, we make sure we throw 2 big beer events, which is the country artists he brings in. Mm-hmm. He says, because that's all booze. He says, that's where we make our money. We just got to do 2 big country shows, all booze. We make our cash for the year. So everything else is pretty much on the And I'm like, that's interesting. And Chad's told me that. Paul Cook told me that years ago. When it comes to the blues, got to make sure you got the booze, and that's where they make their coin. But
it's nice in the town. We put a double fence around the whole event now, and it's nice that you can go get a beer and walk around. For a while, it was you had to be in a beer tent. You couldn't see the stage and stuff. It really has worked out the way the city has worked with everybody to make it work. And we're gonna go even bigger this year. We're gonna back the stage up to the tennis courts. I'm pretty excited about that. I think we can get a lot more people, and I think it'll hold about 15,000. So we're gonna see what we can do.
When are you gonna make the announcement? Is that
probably in a week or 2? Yeah.
All right.
And who is it?
Well, with it, I think you're keeping that a secret, right?
I'm trying.
You can.
God's telling me it's not going to come out.
Before we get the grand finale of Chad's show here, I do got to ask him a few more questions, and then we'll see if we can get it out of him. But did you book any? I can't
believe what time it is.
I got you've done some great stuff, my friend.
Oh, I want to get it. This will work for sure. Butter me up, and I'll give you whatever you want. Right.
That's our technique.
Yeah. Did you book any of the Pig Gig bands? Did you help them with any of those shows? I always wondered about that.
I never did. Okay. So all of the fireworks shows I helped with, and tall ship shows I helped with.
See, I remember you saying I helped. I wondered if you did on any. Those are more questions I had.
No, I did. I did. Wendy did all of her own shows.
Okay.
And they were set up a little bit different, but she did a nice job of keeping everything over by the ribs where they were selling and that whole deal. But no, I had nothing to do with those shows.
But you did on those other ones, and that was more questions.
Everything else that was in
you've had it.
I had my fingers
because they seen you bring in the nationals, and all of a sudden you know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool. And I remember you going, you're like pulling my hair out, but we'll do whatever we got to do.
Look, it's really cool how far I think it's come and what Bay City's doing. I mean, you look at the summer and the lineups and the people that are coming, and that wasn't happening when I started doing it. There was nobody coming here, and this show that we're gonna do on August 6th. We took from Pine Knob. Now, I'm not slamming Pine Knob, but they have plenty of great shows. Mm-hmm. It's really fun that they're going to play one Michigan show. It could have been Pine Knob, but it's not. It's Bay City. So guess what? I always say people from the South aren't going to drive up here, right? But for this show, they will, because if you want to see it and you like the band, I know how you are with bands. You're going to go see them wherever, and other people will travel all the way to Florida. So, it's just fun. I love this city. I love being able to put it on the map, and I just think it's cool when we can do stuff here, and it's really catching on. I mean, there's a lot of shows now. Mike's doing shows. There's a lot of shows around, so that's great.
Well, I want to backtrack through the cobwebs of the memory here and ask you about some bands, some quick quotes and your favorites and ideas or dislikes or whatever. George Thorogood show.
What?
How'd it go? Dude, was that a cool?
Well, George Thorogood show would have been. Oh no!
Well, it wasn't too long ago. That's why I started with that.
No. I'm thinking who was the other one that we had? Was it Dire Straits? Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything that was memorable from that show.
No, okay. Did you do the Pat Benatar show? That was
no. The Pat Benatar would have been Mike Krieger from the Bay City Times did that show, and I don't know with who, but that was in Winona Park too.
Okay, yep. And I wondered if you had a connection to. This is why I'm asking some of these. I remember you did Thorogood, but I was gone that night. You did the CCR show. That was the first time they finally played around here.
Yep.
What were your memories back of that CCR gig?
Well, I don't think I have anything besides it was an awesome show.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out great. They sounded great. The lead singer was phenomenal.
They had he sounded a lot like John Fogerty.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. Yeah,
definitely.
It's crazy how some of these bands can find these guys, Journey and Foreigner, and they really do a good job of finding.
And you did some of the big hair bands too. You've done Whitesnake, right?
Yeah, we did a bunch of
Tesla.
Yeah.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can keep going. There's tons. Rat,
packed.
D. Snyder.
Snyder doing them nights. Yeah. Coming in and hanging out.
What's the age? What's our audience? All older people that listen to your podcast, or we got kids too?
Well, there's some, hopefully kids down the line.
So there's I remember D. Snyder. Maybe we'll just clean this up if I can. But I go into D. Snyder and we're in the trailer talking, and he is. It's like talking to you guys. It's just calm and nice and everything. And he just got done being on one of these shows, and I felt like he got screwed over on the show because he was the rocker and there was country stars and stuff like that, and so we hit it off because I kind of took his side, and he agreed that he got screwed on that show. So we were hanging out together really for the whole day, and I'm telling you, not one swear word, not just the comment, telling me about his grandkids and going fishing, and just a real guy, right? And so we brought D because it was D. Snyder, Jackal, and Rat, I think, were the bands that were that night, right? And it had rained a little bit and stuff like that, and D was doing the MC stuff, so I didn't have to do it. He was gonna head that up, and he walked up on stage, and we just get ready to go, and he said, I gotta figure out how to say this quote without saying it, but he said, Mother Nature And anyway, and then blank Mother Nature was his quote. And I remember everybody from the board coming to me like, what is this guy? And I said, look, he's out there. You want to go tell him to stop? Tell him to stop. You know, there's a whole crowd of people. But it was, I was like, whoa, how did this happen from this guy that was just the most normal gentleman in the world? And
I remember looking over at you went,
I was like, what the heck? Mother Nature's pissing on us. I say blank Mother Nature, and I went, like, and what do you do, right? I mean, I don't have a mute button. I can't edit anything. It's just live. And I thought, well, here we go. But,
hey, it's all rock and roll, right?
It was rock and roll, and a rainbow came out, the sun came out, and the show went on, and it was great until you take Jackal, who has their lumberjack song where they have a real chainsaw that they take the muffler off of, so it's loud as hell. And then they take a guy like Dee Snider, who is from New York and has never touched a chainsaw, an axe, a log probably for that matter, and he calls him out from the side of the stage, and he hands him, they've got a wooden stool, they've taken the screws out, and they want him to, you're supposed to, and you cut the thing.
Yep.
Dee swings the thing like an axe. It hits the stool and comes flying back and almost takes out, what's Jackal's lead singer?
Jesse James Dupree.
Yeah. Almost hits him. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, who hands somebody on a live stage a live chainsaw? Like, or who takes it and doesn't know how to use the damn thing? He could have went like, nah, I'm good. But he took it swinging. I thought, oh my gosh, I almost watched a beheading right on stage. It was the scariest.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, Jesse grabbed the chainsaw right back at the stool and somebody come get Dee. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, how's the Joan Jett show? What's your memories of that one?
Well, I mean, I just remember Joan adjusting her boobs before she went on stage. That's all I remember from that. And she has no boobs. She was wearing like this little garbage thing, and I'm like, I look, but she's punk and hard, and it was that show was really miserable for me because Joan had Blackheart Records, and so she wants to promote a band. I want to promote a new band. Like, that is always the goal, is to try to help new talent get started, obviously. And so she brings this band called Random 55. I let them play 3 songs and we killed it because every word was a swear word. Kill your mom, your dad too. We're going to kill you. Like, we shut the band down. The band went over to the fair or whatever we had going and started fights, and it was miserable. And that's why the difference, it was so crazy going from that show to the next year. I had Faith Hill, and they come in and the Bible is on the bus, and her daughter Grace gets off and was playing with my daughter, and she's just the nicest, sweetest person you've ever met. And I was like, man, what a difference in how you can handle these things.
Events.
Yeah, it was just like, we're gonna go in there and be bullies and this whole thing, and then we're gonna go in and be nice. It's just, and then look at Faith Hill, and you look at where they get, and I think it's crazy because like Faith sent a letter to me after the show. Thank you so much for all your support. I mean, this is a huge star, and everybody else. So it's crazy when you get treated the right, how you want to do more for them. And I think that's like a 38 Special, Styx. I mean, these bands are just so easy. REO, these bands that are Alice Cooper, they're easy to work with. I've had them back twice over 30 years because REO, I just know it's going to be a great day. Oh, REO, yeah. I still remember REO. We had that storm that day, and we didn't open the gates till 9:30. And I was praying a lot that day just that we could make the show happen. And the sirens were going off, and the town was calling saying, what's your plan? My plan is not to let anybody in. I mean, we don't have a plan to hide anybody. We're in a field, and
no protection. So right.
Midland Street just wiped up. I mean, they were those bars did great because everybody drank for 4 hours before we opened, and then they came, and I still remember the very end of that show, the sirens went off again, and somebody hit me and said, this is in Riding the Storm Out. It's their siren. That's not ours. But man, did it sound the same. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Everybody run. But,
that was the most perfect evening to have that song going.
Yeah.
Did you do the Doobies? Wasn't that a wet one too?
So I did do the Doobie Brothers. That was with Doug Clark and the Fireworks. We did that one.
Yeah, I remember that being kind of muddy as well.
We're not going to have any muddy problems this year, right? It's going to be nice and sunny. Yeah.
Good positive story that I want you to bring a little bit of information to me. You may have said something to the Times down the road about, but Trace Adkins came, spent some time, got on the water with you, wanting to buy a house up here, didn't he?
I don't remember that part, but there is a story there, and I would have forgot it. So I'm glad that you remembered this stuff because I didn't do enough to remember stuff, and I'm too old. But Trace Adkins' camp called me and said Trace has 2 days off. where can they go in Michigan? And I said, it's hard to know where to send somebody. Tell me, that's too far. And I said, well, my parents have a place that's just an hour north in Gladwin. And so Trace went up there. Mom has no idea who Trace Atkins or Dad is, so it worked out perfect because it wasn't a star. I mean, they were going around in the pontoon and everybody's noticing, and Mom started to pay attention that maybe this is. But the fun story is Trace was over laying in a hammock, and my mom and his wife and 2 daughters were down at the beach. And my mom said, "Hey, Trace, could you take a picture?" And, he got up, and he's a big gentleman, and fixed his hat and all that and walked over. Well, she handed him the camera. She didn't give a shit if he's in the picture. She wanted a picture of her and the 3 girls, and he was just took the picture. But I still think it's hilarious because she's like, he thought I wanted a picture of him, but I wanted it of us.
No.
I think that's a cute story. But
It is. Oh, too cool. Yeah.
Trace was off. He went golfing with Tom Pazinski, one of Tom helped us for years.
I remember you telling me about that though. Yeah.
Yeah, he hung out. Great guy, just a great guy.
Yeah, I thought you said something a year later. So like, hey, he wanted to buy a place up here or something.
I don't know.
He was looking at him.
Yeah, and that could be. I know his wife and my mom stayed in contact for a while. So.
And he's on a big national TV show coming up here, or it's on right now. One of the two, Nashville or whatever.
Yeah.
How cool is that? You ever keep in contact with any of these artists? On 38 Special, obviously, you have. Is there anybody that personally you we talk still?
Yeah, no, not that. I don't think so. Chris Henderson from 3 Doors Down a while. Bobby Capps I was talking to. Tesla's drummer, Troy Forever.
Lacretta.
Yeah, but
a great guy.
But I really, I don't know too much anymore. Yeah.
Well, that leads us to this year, man.
Yeah, that's the one I do keep in touch with. The one guy.
Yeah. What's going on this year?
I don't know.
In August.
We're having a show. What? Wait, seriously, though.
No, this is your chance because it's going to come out that month. It's perfect timing. We get to talk a little bit. Give us a little background. And obviously, this has to stay in the can until the announcement. But, I mean, it only goes into the people you're looking at right here.
I know, but can you trust that guy?
If Fred can come and record an old 78 of the show, he'd be happy. So,
listen, I'm pretty excited with the announcement because I've done a lot of shows, and I think this will probably be the biggest we've ever had. So as far as country, we're going to do that Friday night. That'll be August 5th, and that'll be Brantley Gilbert, which is, he's got tons of #1 hits on the country record. There's an interesting story to Brantley Gilbert. So we're at Foreigner, which I did a few years ago, and I had a buddy of mine there that hunts with Brantley Gilbert and is friends with him, and he said, you should have Brantley come up here, and he's telling me all this stuff. He said, this venue would be great, he'd love it, and I'm friends with him, I can help you get him, and all this type of stuff. And I said, okay. And so I went home, and my wife listens to country. I've never listened to country. I have no idea who Brantley Gilbert is. And I said, Dina, do you know a Brad Gilroy? I said, this country guy I'm supposed to bring called Brad Gilroy. She says, I have no idea. So I called my buddy, and I said, she's never heard of Brad Gilroy. He said, because that's not his name. His name is Brantley Gilbert. And she's like, oh, you dumbass. I know Brantley Gilbert. Everybody knows, right? And so the thing has kind of evolved into, he ended up becoming a pretty good friend of mine because of this other friend. So we've hung out a few times. I own a furniture manufacturing company in Mississippi. He's done 4 or 5 sofas. It's our Brantley Gilbert collection that we sell all over the country.
Oh, wow.
He's come, we've hung out. I own a teepee now at my farm because Brantley told me I had to have a teepee, and I may have had too many vodkas that night and bought one. But he's just a super guy and a lot of fun. A little more on the rock edge of country. He won't wear a cowboy hat. He wears a ball cap. He rides a Harley. He's kind of the rocker of the country world, I'd say. But a lot of great songs. I think that's going to be a great night. Then I always like to, since we have the stage there and we do all this setting up and the fences and all this, we might as well have a rock show too. So we're going to have Papa Roach on August 6th, the Saturday, and they'll be with Hollywood Undead, Falling in Reverse, and Bad Wolves. So it's 4 national acts.
Well,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
For the crowd that's sitting here, I'm not bringing like Steely Dan or somebody that you guys.
Yeah, we were thinking it was going to be
Gary's
the
like,
biggest thing ever in this area. Okay,
Yeah.
this could be. Okay, I can see.
Both of these shows will sell out. I guarantee it. That's why we're trying to go to like 15,000 each night. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
should be big.
yeah, all we need is some beautiful Bay City weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need some beautiful weather and
Yeah.
a lot of beer and no fighting.
Yeah.
Well, there's rarely any problems at these things, and I've never seen anything of that on the many concerts I
Well,
went to.
I really wish you. I'm knocking on wood right now.
Yeah.
We've never had an issue. We've not had one
Yeah.
issue over the thing. And the only thing we had one time with Ted Nugent, it was crazy. This we've got the fencing up, and it was probably, I'm gonna say, maybe a foot off the ground. This guy laid down, rolled under that, climbed under a semi, over a fence, jumped up on an 8-foot stage, and decided he's going to go hug Ted. And, you know, I don't think he meant any harm, but that freaks those guys up.
Well,
I
right.
will tell you, when Ted Nugent sets up his thing, there's this big case they roll off that said, hot fire, something like that on it. And I was asking what it was. Well, it was full of guns. Like, they literally, like, I think Ted creates so much controversy that they need protection, right? I mean, he wasn't a big fan of Michael Moore on the stage. He wasn't a fan of Hillary Clinton. And he says what he believes. Well, this guy runs across the stage, just wanted to hug Ted. Now, what I was impressed with is the bass player doesn't miss a beat and keeps playing and hit the guy in the back of the head with the butt. I mean hard. Just whacks him with his guitar. So he hit him, and by that time, the 2 guys that were running the monitor world had grabbed him and threw this guy face first off of the stage into the backstage area. Well, it snapped his arm when he hit the bottom, and you know, the officers that picked the guy up said, look, I think this guy's had enough of a bad night. And I said, fine, just get him out of the gates. Well, he had hit a guitar of Ted's. And so one of these guitars fell out of the thing. And it started with the roadie telling me that I owed them $10,000. And then the manager telling me we owed him $100,000 because it was priceless. I said, somebody needs to decide what the price tag is on this guitar. But then they found out it was for the Boys and Girls Club, and I never did. But that was really the only
Unbelievable.
somewhat
I missed
issue
that show. I
otherwise.
wasn't at that one. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that guy coming on stage. I was there, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it happened pretty quick.
Yeah,
Like, the
that
whole
was
deal
pretty far
happened pretty
back. So,
quick.
yeah.
But those shows, I mean, that Poison night, that was crazy.
Lord.
I remember the people just kept coming and coming. You couldn't get around. We made more money in T-shirts than I've ever made, probably in 5 or 6 shows combined. And you know, because we get 10%, and I think we made $19,000 just in T-shirt sales that night. And the guy chewed me out because he said, "There's so many people, nobody could get to me." And I'm thinking, "There's so many people. That's why he sold so many shirts."
Yeah.
But it was that's why I'm going to back up. I don't want to pack people in like that. I like my space, and
Yeah.
I think everybody deserves a little bit of space. Not 6 feet, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
we're over that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's going to be busy. Hopefully we can keep it dry, too. That's the other cool thing. Beautiful sunshine, dry.
Yeah, we've been very blessed with the weather. I haven't had a show that hasn't gone on, so...
Is there anybody that you've wanted to book that you haven't booked yet that you might book down the road?
Sure.
Is there any names, or you just want to
Just
keep
a yes/no question?
No, I'm just wondering.
You know, I tried for Sammy Hagar for a lot of times. I'd like to have Sammy, but you know, Sammy has just keeps jacking his price up. I think he doesn't want to work as hard, and so you know, he's getting expensive. He's $300,000-$400,000, and
He's probably picking and choosing nowadays. You don't see him on any major tours anymore.
no, he's picking and choosing. And I think the hard part is that for us, I like to make the tickets reasonable. I mean, you know, you start to get to a 2, 3. I mean, you guys were talking about, what did you say, $300 to $900? Some people are charging $900 for a ticket.
No, for the Fox for Van Morrison.
I mean,
Over $1,000.
It's just a lot of money. I think everybody still works hard. Bay City, you know, people work hard for their money.
Yeah.
I just don't. I want to bring somebody that they can go have a great time, and it's reasonable. I just don't want it to be $1,000. That's crazy to me.
After your first year doing the 30-day special thing and then the no beer thing and all that, what was the first year where you took a deep breath and said that was how you put on a rock show or a country show or whatever it was? What was the first event that you
I think
felt
Faith Hill was probably my biggest show. That was like, man, that was huge because you just looked down and saw a sea of people. It was as far as, but they were on the steep part of the back hill, which is crazy. If you go over there, it's hard to walk, but they were it was full. So, yeah, that was a big one. I always wanted to have Leonard Skinner. So for me personally, that was like a big deal just to have Skinner play our hometown. So, yeah.
That was so cool. I remember Styx, when I hit the stage, that back hill was filling up, and you're like, dude, that's one of the busiest nights we've ever had here. Yeah. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, Styx always sells. Styx, REO, and what's the third one? Foreigner. Those three bands, for what they are, it's crazy to think at 70 years old, those guys can still sell out everywhere they go.
So when you projected this year's, and you're putting it together, are you already looking ahead at next year? How do you go about yours?
I'm not that smart. No. Let's get through this one.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then I'll thread.
Well, you're not booking constant either. You're not booking seasons or anything. You look far enough out and then take care of it, take a breath, and then go back right at it for the following year.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, I don't need to do the show again. It's a charity, right? Yep. And this year's charity will be just for kids, which is a great charity that Wayne Meyer does, and that'll be the main. In the Soup Kitchen, Safe Harbor, that's really doing great things. But those are the two charities that this year's will be for. The hard part in the past was I used to book it for River Roar, and it helped to supplement the race and all the stuff, and it had to be on that weekend. It's very difficult to get a band in Bay City on a certain weekend. So now what I can do is go fish for bands, and then I go deal with the city and say what's available, what weekend can I have. You can have August 5th and 6th, so I can throw out 3 or 4 to these agencies and say, hey, what do you have this weekend, or this weekend. That's why we were able to get bigger bands, and I can just move them.
Okay.
So it's a little easier. And no, we don't need to do it next year, but if somebody comes available, I'm not going to go to doing a show just to do a show.
Cool.
If it's a big show and
well, someday you might say, this is going to be my last show I'm going to put on. And you might do your own big show.
I've said that a million times.
And you do have every year.
I say it, there will be a point this year I'll say this is my last show. And then I'll forget about it and we'll go do another one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chad, for all the entertainment that you and your family have brought, all the money and times and positivity. I mean, dude, there's not one ray of sunshine that hasn't been touched by you guys in the entertainment world for our area for decades, long before you, obviously, with your dad. So it's just awesome to have you on the show to talk about it, to get some of your stories, and I can't wait for the next 10, 15 years, man, and what's left, What do you got?
Putting the pressure on you.
I'm
putting it down now, man.
I'll be doing shows in wheelchairs. It's nice of you to say. I like to stay behind the scenes. That's where the shows are fun for me, because I can stay back in my trailer and just watch it happen. But Gary called, and I said no, and I think I even called him last night, and maybe this morning, and said, do I still have to do this? I
tried to get him to bring his guitar, but
you want to play it? No. So
that's awesome.
It's fun. I like doing this stuff, Mark's and the drums with Jason and Mark and Jack and that type of stuff, and I like doing it all, but these microphones scare me. I'm not a front man. That's why I play drums, and I like to be in the back of the band. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Chad.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. It was wonderful.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and the Electric Kitch at electrickitch.com.
This podcast wouldn't be here without special help from Studio 163's Alan Garcia, our podcast videographer and wingman, Mr. Mike Beatty, MMHP tagline specialist, Mr. Eddie Switek, and of course, Gary Johnson, Fred Rife, the Electric Kitch, and all of our special guests, and especially you listeners. We want to thank you.
You've been listening to the MMHP and the 989. From all of us at the podcast, we want to thank you for tuning in.
My wife's like, try not to say fuck too much. That's the only advice she gave me. I swear all the time. I can't ever help it. I get excited. That's what Clyde said the one time. I said, Mark, somebody asked Mark, what did you think the first time that you guys met Chad and stuff? And he said, well, we couldn't believe there was a guy in Bay City that actually had connections to record labels and stuff. And we couldn't believe how much he said, fuck. God, so you don't have to tell that story like that. You know, that was the problem with the damn Alice Cooper show. We didn't sell that much beer. He's such a good entertainer. You don't have time to go get a beer.
Well, that's right. You don't want to
His
miss
show
anything.
never stops.
True.
It never stops. There's no drum solo. Like everybody else will do, the singer rests his voice or something. Alice is cutting his head off, then he's in this costume, then he's over here. And no one would leave. And I looked at the beer sales and I thought, man, we didn't sell any beer. He was so cool too. My aunt loves him. Her cat is called Alice and stuff. Like she loves it. So I said, listen, I'm bringing a guy to town and I want you to drive. And she always would help with the shows. And I said, but you can't act like you're a fan. Who is it? I said, Alice Cooper. I said, no, you can't act. So end of the night, he's in the back with his wife and she's driving. And I just said, Alice, we roll both windows down. I said, will you pretend like you're choking her? He said, what? I said, just pretend like you're choking. So he reaches up through the car and he's in the back window. He's got both hands and she's like, out the window. And me and my wife blew it up and it's hanging over her fireplace. And he was such a